Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, who created India, he was the leader known as the Iron Man of India. Speech at a public meeting in Calcutta, 15 January 1950. Disorder hampers progress. That's what he said. I am fully aware of the Bengal's agony. My heart goes out to the people of Bengal, but I am confident that, as always, they will face the difficulties with determination. Ever since India's freedom was at stake, Bengal has shown courage in every crisis. The leaders and the youth of Bengal endured great cruelties in the fight against alien rule. All India is indebted to Bengal for that. Later, when the alien grip was relaxed, but the transition was still halfway through, the power was shared by the Muslim League and the British. That was a period of travail for you, and you stood up to it courageously. Bengal or India can never forget what was the direct action by those people. How can the plight of Calcutta in those days be forgotten? Nor can subsequently the event now wholly forgotten by you for India. Those pages of history, good or bad, such as they are, cannot be deleted. Gandhiji was there in those days. He walked from village to village and shared in the people's woes. He gave them sustenance and consolation. For a few days he stayed in Calcutta. Then, either under provocation or sympathy with you, or our Bihari brethren showed their anger, and their fire spread in India, particularly in the north. It came to be felt that unless the alien rule was removed somehow or the other, whatever their intentions, peace in the country was impossible. Nor was it easy to remove the strife between the two communities. In these circumstances, we decided to accept partition of the country on the condition that Punjab and Bengal so be divided. It was God's will that when others wanted to partition Bengal, the people resisted the decision at the great sacrifice, but partition of the same Bengal had to be accepted when there was no alternative. Dissenting voice was raised at that time because everyone understood that there was no other way out. We were clear in our minds that we could never accept Calcutta being taken away from us. The Muslim League leaders had to accept this. They were averse to having a moth-eaten Pakistan. They wanted the whole of Bengal and the whole of Punjab. Ultimately, they came round, but the bloodshed which then occurred has left a wound which will take some time to heal. Bengal's hurt was deep. Patience and endurance are needed as on many previous occasions. But better days will come. We must do nothing to spoil things. We must act with discretion, not in anger. In the part of Bengal that was separated from us, there are Hindus as well as Muslims. We want all of them to be happy. We want all wounds to heal as quickly as possible. For this, patience and forbearance are needed on both sides. Those who are our flesh and blood, those who fought by our side in the freedom struggle, cannot suddenly become foreign to us because they are on the side of the other line. There are people in South Africa, people of Indian origin, but with African citizenship, whom we still try to help. If they have a claim on us, surely those in that part of Bengal too have a claim. The bonds of kinship and the economic social links cannot be broken. But to remove their difficulties, we have first to set out our own house in order. Some people mislead the refugees who have come here and incite them by saying that the government does not do anything for them. But this does not hold good. It does not mitigate their suffering. We can help them only if we set our house in order. We must stop the daily incidents of bomb and cracker blasts, burning of trains and cars, assaults on policemen, etc. Such occurrences distract attention from the relief work. People elsewhere get the impression that lawlessness prevails in Calcutta and living there is difficult. Only on coming there do not they find that such is not the case. A handful of malcontent want to hold Calcutta and the Bengal government in the grip of fear. I cannot understand their motive and intentions. I cannot understand a communist ideology, but how can such vandalism help? But what pains me more is the attitude of lakhs of other residents of Calcutta. Why don't we understand our duty? It is wrong to think that combating lawlessness is the duty only of the police and the government. Today's government is not a foreign government. A foreign government would have used the old methods which we cannot use. Of course, when you feel you do not want this government, you can remove it. We do not want to delay elections at all. A lot of money will have to be spent on the crores of people who have been enfranchised for the first time, but that does not matter. Much time and energy will have to be spent. Even that is of small consequence. What is needed more is the right atmosphere. To those who think that they have a substitute for the ballot box in the shape of revolution, I would respectfully submit that bombs and attacks on police are not revolution, but a form of madness. It is the work of lunatics. I could not understand if it were a few young men venting their frustrations in this way. But the deliberate abatement of chaos helps no one. In the last war, a breakdown of foreign government's administration led to 30 lakh starvation deaths in Bengal. No one could protect them. But today, when 70% of the policemen are Bengalis themselves, what is the sense in attacking them? They impose restrictions for our own good, not on orders from foreigners. Any threat to civil liberties come from not from them, but from those who foster terrorist cult. You have to stop them if you want to keep your liberty. You cannot pass the buck to the police. No democracy can be run with the policeman's baton. It has to become a habit with us to blame the police. It does not behove. We have to change this attitude. It was another police whom we criticized day and night. Today, they are our own volunteers. We do not pay them as much as we ought to because we are unable to do so. But if we do not have sympathy for them in the work that they are doing, they will not regret, and you will also regret. I am aware of unemployment among youth in Bengal. Thousands of young men in colleges have difficulties with our studies because they have to work in shifts, something which used to happen only in factories. They have to work in those shifts, and I can understand their difficulties. And those professors, the 40 or 50,000 who graduate every year, also face unemployment. Something has to be done about it. Calcutta is among India's biggest industrial centers. We need the kind of wealth produced in the city as much as we need the kind of wealth produced by farmers in the rural areas. Lack of one cannot be compensated by the other. But the Bengalis have at least the share in the industrial sector. What is the reason for this? Those who own factories and companies have a duty to perform towards the youth of Bengal. Similarly, unemployed youth of Bengal must understand that we cannot discriminate on the basis of provincialism. We have to discourage such narrow parochial influences. Bengal has been left with a shrunken size with partition, and there is a demand that some area from Bihar be added to it. I tried to do something about it, but this is not easy because people have to be persuaded. The rulers and the people have to be persuaded without precipitating any disorder. You must have seen how I brought around 550 to 600 states without allowing any disorder to happen. Whoever indulged in disorder broke his head. You must help. You must help me in solving the Bengal problem similarly. Do not create trouble for me. Do not be obstacles in my way. I want to do this, but for the one thing that I am beset by bodily troubles, for another, if I do not solve the other big problems in our country, they will affect you too, and you will be in the deeper trouble. That has to be avoided while your work is done. I want your cooperation so that we do not need so much of police. I have never needed a policeman in my life, for who would want to kill me? But Gandhiji also said the same thing. So, the police insists on following me around. We have to change this atmosphere by curbing the hot heads amongst us. Similarly, our working people have to understand that they have to be given their due. The owners and the employers must give up their greed. The tradesmen The tradespeople must desist from black marketing and profiteering. Those who talk of China should remember that even Russia had to make immense sacrifices in its early years after the revolution. America, the world's wealthiest country, took 7 years to frame its constitution after independence. Ours is a vast country, yet we have framed our constitution in 3 years in spite of all our troubles. America's wealth came from years of hard work. Much effort over many years went to make the present affluence. Our independence is only 2 years old, and we want to have things shared out in our portions. That would only make everyone poor and no one rich. I admit that some of our people are rich, but their riches are nothing compared to the riches of rich Americans. We want to use their wealth properly. Otherwise, they will lose their wealth and we will gain nothing out of it. Inciting workers to strike, to go slow, to sit in will damage us greatly. These things may be necessary sometimes, but not now. Our Indian traditions are such that we can sit down and arrive at agreements. The rich have also been told their duty. They made a lot of black money under foreign rule during the war. They thought it was all right to avoid income tax so that the alien rulers will get as little as possible. But now it helps neither them nor us. Some people want us to nationalize all industry. How are we to run nationalized industries if we cannot run our ordinary administration? It is easy to take over any industry we want to, but we do not have the resources to run them. Enough experienced men, men of expertise, integrity. Today, when we impose controls on business activities about which there are complaints, no one speaks well of those people who administer controls. We are burdened with the complaints of bribery and government gets a bad name. Gandhiji advised us to remove controls. So, we made an experiment which landed us in much trouble. That there were demands for reimposition of controls. Now that we have imposed controls again, some people say government does not know its own mind. They are right, but much of the government work in the vast country depended for its disposal on the prestige of the Englishmen who manned a little over half of our administrative services and who are now departed. Today we see no English face among our policemen. British governors have left us, but they have left only statues behind. What else is revolution if not this? What we do in the next 5 years is going to shape India's future. All of you, the employees and the employers, the young and the old, men and women, have to work together to build up the country. Eschewing strife, embracing the ways of peace and persuasion. If we spread poison and create provincial jealousies, the only result will be a flight of in Calcutta's industry to places where there is a greater peace. I would appeal to Bengal's youth in this formative period when their character are being molded to control their minds, get ready to work in industry and learn to work with the government. You must not adopt the attitude that it is none of your business or concern. When a tram or a bus carrying 50 passengers is stopped by two young men and the passengers are asked to get down, they have no business to obey like a flock of sheep. It does not behove citizens of a free India. They have a duty and a right to tweak the two people, men, and scold them. Only thus can things work out well. I read in the papers that policemen are beaten up at some places or the other every day. Some time ago, when the police opened fire, somewhere the people clamored for trials and inquiries. Why don't they make as much noise when policemen are beaten up? Has the government to function or has it not? It can function only if every free Indian realizes that it is his duty to nurture and protect this freedom. The handful of people who are creating trouble should be curbed. Volunteer squads should be set up in localities where these things are happening. There is talk of underground, the son, the brother, or the relation who works in the underground should be warned to desist from the wrong path or be prepared to be turned over, to be given over to the police. Without such active cooperation, things cannot be set right. And by increasing expenditure, finally falls on you, as the expenditure on police, jails, etc. comes from your pockets. It is diverted from the poor, needy, refugees, whom they are misleading. We may also have to provide for our brothers who are being persecuted in East Pakistan and for whom life has been made impossible. If this thing goes on and they are hounded out, it would be very difficult situation. So we should set our house in order. I beseech you to avoid intersigning quarrels. Do not air your differences in such a way as to create a false impression among outsiders. We have to advance our productive work and increase the nation's wealth. We have to persuade the farmers to grow as much as they can, keep what they need for their own, and give the remaining to the government at the appointed rates. There are those who incite farmers to demand inflated pay price, but where will the money come from? Not from those provocateurs, but from you and me. We may have imposed controls and failed to check all graft and corruption. But if we have not let anyone die of starvation, unlike what happened under British in Bengal when 30 lakh people died, crores of mounds of food grains had to be imported at great cost for this purpose. Let us all sweat it out. Every Indian could share in the difficulties we face. If we share adversity for a year or two, we'll have a happier prospects thereafter. Bengal must be restored to its rightful place in the forefront of Indian life. To the Congress workers, my last appeal is to unite. All our lives, we have been devoting ourselves to suffering for the people. What does it matter if we get a ministry or not? You have fought famine and floods. Those who are not in the ministry find fault with it. There is no way to run the country if someone does wrong. Of course, one should be taken to task where it cannot be proved. Otherwise, it would only spoil our reputation. If the police show any shortcoming, the government should be approached, but we must forget our old habit of criticizing them in general terms. Today, they work devoutly in difficult circumstances. We must give them our support and sympathy. To the newspapermen, the members of the profession, and the intelligentsia, my appeal is that they should say and do what is right, raise their voices for the proper causes, and raise the volunteer squads to protect the honor of Calcutta and of Bengal.